Apparently I'm live. Okay, cool. Camera's recording, audio's recording. We're all good.
Perhaps it'll run flat at some point, I'm sure. But
So who's going to start? I think we should introduce ourselves, right? Okay. Welcome everyone. Today it is 2 developers and 3 recruiters. 3 wonderful recruiters, but we'll get to that. So you're here with Andrew and myself. You've seen us from last week and the week before. And we're trying to mix it up a bit. We're not going to talk directly about code, but we're going to talk about the challenges developers have and also the challenges recruiters have. So should we start introducing ourselves and go around and maybe give one pet hate that you have from your side of the fence, I guess? I don't know if we can bridge across.
Okay. Sounds good, sounds good. So I'm Katarina. I've been doing IT recruitment for a year, also in recruitment agency. Most software developers in Finland, and yeah, that's pretty much me. Last year I've been doing my final thesis and now focusing more to internal recruitment. But yeah, pet hate what I have mostly. I'd say for me, just kind of getting into that conversation, getting into that kind of honest conversation. For me, that's the thing. Like kind of like breaking those stereotypes before like you get to the point. So yeah, for me, that kind of like hard work and fight you have to do to get into that honest conversation.
Okay, sounds interesting. You brought up a few good points, and we'll come back to those later on. I'm quite interested to not to punch it out, but to discuss.
Well, my name is Leonora. I've been in IT recruitment for 3 years, and I've been taking care mainly of the German market and Swiss market. So yeah, and the thing what I really hate about, especially developers, is probably that they presume that women don't know about anything or don't know about their technology or their coding or their expertise, but we actually take quite a lot of time to get into the field, so we know a little bit. Maybe not as much, but I mean, that's fair enough. Yeah.
Of course. Everyone has their area of speciality, but there is overlap.
Exactly.
And you're right, that is a stereotypical problem, which we're hopefully going to debunk today.
Yes, and my name is Anna. I am now in internal recruitment, or kind of HR is people operations, but I've been in recruitment for 5 years, so both sides from external headhunting and internal headhunting, and definitely my pet hate is arrogance in general. It could be from both sides of the fence, and it's kind of the overconfidence and maybe somewhat synced with that subject, but that is something that I hang my head against the wall.
You also mentioned internal and external as another point we want to cover. I think it's on the wall, or we did talk about it briefly, because what's the difference and how does that work? So it's another interesting. I'm sure you have different challenges.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we'll go more into that in a bit. That sounds, I'm looking forward to that.
so I'm Andrew. I was as per previous videos really. Yeah, so obviously in the tech industry, software developer, architect, standing as CTO sometimes places. I suppose my pet hate, if there was one, is when you get bombarded by lots of CVs. You get a mix, obviously, different recruits. Some filter them out, look after you, and get the right things to you. Others just bombard you. Here you go. Here's a load of CVs, and you start going, well, difficult to know which ones to go to. So you end up just talking to all these different people, and I don't know. At least 80% of those end up just being a complete waste of your time because the CV they just filled out is a lie, or they spread the truth so far it's just beyond anything. I mean, everyone always extends the truth a little bit on a CV, but yeah, the CVs that just are not relevant are a waste of time because tell the truth.
If only it was that simple. If people told the truth, oh my God, it would be just so much easier.
And you get found out, right? If you lie on a CV, you're going to be found out pretty quickly.
True,
So you're
but
wasting
some
everyone's
people,
time.
you are wasting everyone's time, but some people do try their luck. And yes, I'm going to say the truth here, because I was that guy like 10, 15 years ago. It's usually the younger, more junior guys that try and wing it to get that more money, that job title. And so, yes, that is a big problem. I mean, I remember when recently we were hiring for our clients, Andrew and me, and one of the major challenges we had was usually women undervalue themselves, or if they don't match 100% of the criteria, they won't apply, whereas guys, if they match like 30-40%, they're just gonna do it. one particular like gentleman and female stayed in mind was, he said he was an expert in it, and when I said, how much work have you done on it? He said he had done a weekend at a hackathon on it, and he thought he was an expert. Where she'd done 2 years on it and thought she didn't know much about it. Just like such a broad scale. If people were like Andrew's saying, if people were just honest, I think it would be clear to where we all stand. So yes, looking forward to getting into this, and should be quite good. So, well, as we mentioned our pet hates, I don't want to get too sidetracked because I know I will get sidetracked a lot. So I'm going to try and stick to this, and if there's time at the end, I'll try and fit some more in. And if I do miss anything out that you have on your agenda, do add it in and say. So, the second one on there is differences between internal and external. Maybe it'd be good to just kind of get everyone on the same page and understand what the difference is there. So who more than one or two more would like to answer?
I can start, and then of course you can bring some ideas. I would say the biggest one now that also now I can see, because I've been 1 year in the internal side. So obviously I really now know the company that I recruit for. So if you think about, I now only recruit for this company that I work for. A year ago I might have worked for hundreds of companies, maybe live jobs you would have like 50, 20 to 50, something like this. So obviously I have more knowledge on what is really going on in our company. I know the strategy more, I know the team sizes, I know the daily job, I know what's really going on. So those kind of the knowledge and insight that you really have when you work internally. If you look at the other way, when you're external, you might have more kind of market knowledge, because you are not just blinded by one company and how do we do things in this company. So you might have maybe more better understanding of what's going on, what are the trends, how are maybe in terms of the processes and profiles, because you work with so many other companies. It could be like consultancies and end users as well, so those differences. I think we can all agree on the quality over quantity aspect. So internally I would say that it's definitely not as much about the quantity, because when you're external, you're very much targeted on the CVs that you put forward, or the interviews that you have, or things like that. So it's more kind of number driven, and you have very like specific KPIs, like what you need to do on a daily basis.
I think that in external it's also like you might know the company, but like only from what they told you. So
Yeah.
internally, of course, you have much more insights because you know, okay, how my team actually is and everything. But external, if you have 100 companies, of course you know where they operate or how big their team more or less are, but you have never lived them.
Exactly, yeah. If you haven't been there on a Monday morning, you really don't get the cultural fit in the same way.
So who is internal, who is external?
External.
Okay, so two external, one internal. Okay, it's good. We get a different perspective. I think it's important. And I apologise in advance if I'm a bit of a dick. But I have 15 years of pain to kind of express. However, after meeting Anna, like a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, my views are definitely changing. And after meeting you two today, it's going to change again. Because I just had so many bad experiences. And I'm sure you have as well. This is why I really want to kind of.
What was your baddest experience then with the recruiter?
That's how long have we got? So, but on a serious note, it's probably easier for me to say what good experience I've had, and it'll be a very short conversation. I mean, no, I'm being completely honest. Let me give you one example. So one example, probably the worst experience was I got a call from an ex-company I used to work for, an ex-client, I'm a contractor, and they said, I can't believe you're working with this recruitment company. I tried to help them to help you, but they were real idiots about it. And I was like, I'm not looking for a new job or anything. So I said, what's the name? He gave me the name. I called them and speak to the guy, and every time I called him, if it was me, he'd hang up, I couldn't get through, and so forth. So eventually I got through to his boss, and I said, I think you're one of the recruiters is calling my ex-company trying to get more information about it. And then I got a few more other emails coming through from other companies I've worked for saying, this recruiter keeps hassling us, what do you need, we'll just go help you directly. And I was like, I don't need anything. And it turns out he'd called that's why on my LinkedIn, all my history is gone. Because he was going through all my history, calling all I'm trying to get a job for Eddie, he needs a reference, what positions do you have? He was just digging for more and more information. And I actually, I work with a lot of my ex-clients over and over again. And two of them, because of that, said to me, we don't want to work with you. And I said, but why not? And they said, in an email they wrote to me, they said, because of the recruiters you deal with. And I was thinking, I've never dealt with this person. So in the end, his boss did put a stop to it, and I got an apology email. But this went on for like about 2 months, and it was, I like to feel a good relationship with my kind of ex-client. So this really annoyed me, and that was, I think, the last time I ever worked. Not that I was working with recruiters at the time, but I really put a stop. I removed all my information. I just kind of didn't do that at all.
That is such a sleazy way to get leads, and even to use your name, like.
Yeah. I mean, you have to understand, like, recruiters generally are under a lot of pressure. Because you have to have, of course, you have to meet the targets, you have to meet goals.
Okay.
You need to hunt for your own business. You need to
Exactly.
find the company that wants to work with you, that is hiring, and then you need to go and find the person for it, and then you need to match them together. So it's not an easy job.
It's not an easy job.
Okay. You made me think of something. Again, I'm deviating. But right, let's start from right at the beginning. So, because those are things that, I guess, as a developer, I wouldn't know. I guess assumed, or maybe a false assumption, that you're kind of given these roles to fill, and you're kind of given these candidates, and you're kind of, it's like,
Really
there's a
easy,
lot,
right?
Yeah, well, not easy. No, nothing's ever easy. We're working with people, it's not easy, especially at two sides, and there's lots of moving parts. But I guess I didn't think it was so much you had to go out. If you were working for yourself, I'd assume that. But if you're working for a big company, I'd assume they would have a whole list of clients that, a whole list of candidates. No. So let's start at the beginning.
Of course, sometimes.
Some,
you
yes.
build it up. Like,
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the reason, like, why there's so many kind of hidden agendas, I would say, recruiters have, or it feels like they have, because that's the part they don't want to talk to those they are recruiting, like that side of like business development. They are really like kind of hiding it, and some better, some not so well, and then that's the part, like, it doesn't come across right, or then there is someone who do it kind of they don't think the consequences for the people. They kind of get blinded with numbers. They just see the numbers, like, this is how many leads I have to, this is how many this and this I have to. So I think that's kind of like they're trying to hide it, and then it's even more suspicious, like, what are you hiding? Why are you asking this? And then they don't tell you because they don't want to tell, like, I'm doing business development, calling you. I'm not just hiring, like, or trying to recruit you. I'm doing other stuff, and I think that could confuse, especially if, like, you do it like that, like, that's horrible, horrible to hear.
Yeah, I just, you made me think of another story. Again, Andrew, jump in here if you want to share some of the name, had your own kind of fair share of fun. That's the word I'm looking for. Is so we have a friend, Andrew, from a long time ago. Katya, who's probably watching now. I mean, she joins some of my streams sometimes. She's up north now. If you're watching, Katya, hi. And I did something really bad to her, unintentionally. As in, I got a call from a recruiter, and I thought he was hassling me. I didn't realise he wanted a reference for Katya, because Katya we hired to work on one of the projects we worked on. And I was like, listen, and I think I mixed him up with another recruiter I got a few days before. So just stop calling, I'm not interested in this, we hung up. And I think a few weeks later, Katya got the job, and she's awesome. She's an amazing developer. But I think when I spoke to her or met her up for a coffee a few weeks later, she said, "You're really rude to my recruiter." I was like, "What?" Like, I didn't know where she was going with this. She said, "He called you for a reference." I'm like, and when I realised when the penny dropped, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I was just having, getting hassled." I think we were hiring at the time, and we were dealing with like 6 recruiters with maybe hundreds of CVs per day. I mean, we were hiring for months because none of these CVs were.
There was about 40 people being hired at the time.
Yeah.
There was a big recruitment drive going on.
Yeah, we had 44 in total, I think, maybe, or 42 or something. It was massive, and it was really, really hard, and yeah, it was tough, and I think we definitely tested the relationship with the recruiters, and let's just say I probably won't work with any of those ever again. Even though a lot of those developers that we interviewed, I wouldn't work with, because they literally just like all out lied on their CV, literally like 10% is true, and like Andrew said, maybe 10% is a lie or kind of embellished a bit, not a lie, just like kind of sugar-coated. But 90% come up, like, I'm not even going to speak to this person. Just not even interested. So yeah. So that's not my pain and frustration comes from stuff. Again, I apologise.
That's
massively.
alright, that's alright.
It's good. It's good to hear that side, and I would say for me too, like those were my favorite calls to like call to someone and get like reference, because like then
For business development, because you go with the warmer touch, like I'm not really like selling you anything. I'm not looking to help you with recruitment. I'm just here as a professional recruiter, getting a reference. Like please just spend your 4 or 5 minutes giving the reference, and then we can move on. But then actually you're like, okay, so this person is the hiring manager. This person was looking for this and this and this skill set. Week later, spec a CV in, and boom, that's your business development. So still I would
there's
like,
still something
Yeah.
you didn't.
yeah, so
A little bit cheeky. You have to be a little bit cheeky.
yeah.
So what's your worst, I guess, developer story?
Oh god.
Or like your worst experience, but not the whole story, but like what's the worst experience? You mentioned that they assume you don't know any tech.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I've worked in automotive, and automotive is dominated by men, which is fine. I mean, it's also good, it's practical as well, because they tend to speak to you in a different way and everything. But yeah, as soon as they then start and say, what are you saying? Have you ever seen a code? And I think, well, I've coded in HTML, okay, it's basics, and maybe you did this, I don't know, 10 years ago, but I've been there too. I've done my own website. C++, of course, if you look into what you actually, if you talk to developers, I always think you have to know a little bit about it. So I'm generally an interested person, so I go on the internet and actually check how a C++ code looks like, or I know how SQL writing looks, and like it's, of course, it's also personal interest, but I think you can't presume just because we are women, or then there are also men in recruiting that have no clue about coding. That's the other side, you know. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that's probably the one, and that leads quite good to Anna's point, which is like the arrogance, and maybe you can tell something about that.
I had one very special, quite unique case when I was external.
Special.
So I had kind of a very good candidate. We kind of like, we connected, we did, not connected, but did the whole like screening and got to know each other, got to know the motivations, expectations. Finally we find a match after 2 weeks or whatever. We've been kind of mapping the market. And what you also, always as an external, you want to make sure that this person has not applied directly for the company. Usually the rule is like 12 months, because obviously you're not going to get paid, which if the person has already applied for the role. Usually there's like some kind of legal letter to say that, okay, me as a recruiter, I'm able to now, I have your right to present you there with your full name, and you know what the company is that we are putting you forward to. And so this person had signed all of it. I really trusted, like, okay, this is going really well. I think I even had some reference from the person, and turns out that this person had applied 15 times directly from the last week to this company. And of course, this makes me look like a really bad recruiter to my client that was actually like kind of relatively new client. So this client of mine calls me and is like what the hell are you doing? Like, this person has already applied 15 times last week.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, what is wrong with you, and what is wrong with this person? Like, what sort of candidates do you present? And I'm just like, how could I have known?
But you can't know, right?
Yeah.
You have to trust
Yeah.
that person, right?
Yeah,
I see.
so that was pretty interesting case.
What happened with the client? Did you keep them, or was it lost?
Luckily, actually, the customer understood somehow. I don't remember how I then negotiated or managed that, but it took some warming and some professional conversations, but they understood, and then they're just like, okay, this was a unique case. There's going to be like weirdos always in the development side and the recruitment side, so that was just a unique
True.
case.
So Andrew's very quiet. Come on, Andrew.
I've just been sorting out the stream problems.
Oh,
so
really?
It's great fun trying to
So
get the
what-
stream working. I think it's just about to start now, finally. So
Okay,
a bit
cool.
behind things, but there we go. It's done now. Yeah, so interesting things with recruiters. Oh, God, so many
But
things.
also,
going on.
yeah, with
So,
hiring, I suppose, yeah, as a whole, like the whole.
yeah, the whole thing. So obviously I've had lots of good experiences where you get a recruiter comes into the office with you, sits down, you go through it, we perhaps talk and introduce a couple of existing members of staff and say these are the kinds of people I'm after getting as well. They really kind of come in to understand because they'll talk about the project with you, understand what the project is, and then it might be a couple of days till they come back to you, but that's fine. I have no problem. Normally when you're recruiting, you're not literally saying, I want someone tomorrow, I want the right person. I'm normally willing to wait, even if it's kind of a month, 2 months,
Really?
to get the right person
Exactly.
come along.
Good. You're good then.
But obviously there are places that rush and say, I just want 10 people, like at the moment here, the current place so I do consultancy work, and I'm consulting at the moment, and they're doing a big, well, if I say big, they're after 5 developers over in Exeter. They've basically said, just get people in. There are 4 juniors, 1 senior, which I think the mix is wrong there, but that's their decision, I guess. So 2 juniors are going to start next week, having started recruitment just over a week ago. So in 2 weeks to turn around and start recruiting people, that seems very quick. There was supposed to be a first interview, a second interview, and all the rest of it, but they just literally had a first interview, which was me talking for 5 minutes just to validate their CV, and they've just hired them off the bat. And I said, yeah, I'm happy to go for a second interview with this person. You think, wow, that's
Let's just recap.
that's quite
that.
a rush.
So you said you're happy with the first interview to move on to the second
Yes,
stage.
and when you actually start going into the technical side,
stuff.
understand their technical background more, rather than the first interview was just validating their CV, because these days I just get used to so many poor CVs, and that's past experience that comes into play there. So you think, okay, I pretty much just talk to everyone that puts a CV in front of me. I'll just say, yep, fine. If there's a CV in front of me, I expect that the recruiter has done a little bit of research and they're appropriate, but I just like to take 5 minutes, just validate that it is someone I want to see. But yeah, this place has just gone on the 5-minute validation of me saying, yeah, I'm happy to talk in person. I've not even seen what these people look like. You don't even know what they look like right now. You just heard their voice over a telephone. You just heard their voice over a telephone. I mean, not that looks should matter or anything like that, but at the end of the day, you want to actually sit in front of someone, see how they interact, do they smile, are they the sort of person you want to put in front of other clients maybe, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm a little bit concerned because that's a bad recruitment experience, but not from the recruiter's point of view, but that's from the organisation just driving forward going, great, okay, yeah, he said yes, he wants to see these people, let's get them in. You think, wow, that's too quick. So
Yeah,
I like to
rushing
wait.
into it.
And a wait, I've got no problem with interviewing lots of people. I like to be quick about it, but I'd rather wait and get the right person in to do the job than just get the first person in to do the job.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but there, like, I mean, we also help developers in a very good way as well, because we were actually speaking about this earlier. We prep them, like, we have serious conversations, what of things they should say in an interview or how they should present themselves. You always make sure that you say, I for example had a developer, he would refuse to wear a suit. So I was like, okay, you, whatever, Bill, or I don't know, like any name, do whatever you want, but I always tell my candidates, or like generally the people, to go in with a suit and a tie, even though you're a developer. But then he didn't want to he didn't want to, but like we really also put a lot of effort into getting to know them, because you want to know their desires, their ambitions. You really, actually, I have still friends now that were my candidates. They text me every day, like send me pictures of their dogs or whatever, and we really invest a lot of time to actually get to know the developers. If you are, I would say, if you care a little bit.
It's the personal interest.
Yeah, and then of course, and then you prep them and you actually tell them what to say or how to behave, to actually, of course, a little bit push them, but also to give them a little bit of self-confidence, because some, especially developers, are lacking this or could lack this, so you want to actually boost them up so they actually get the job as well, you know.
And also because they're kind of presenting you as well when they go to the interview. Yeah. Only thing I would add there, I mean, it depends on the company. That's why the recruiters kind of, if you're external especially, you need to know the culture, because if you are, of course, if you're a big corporate consultancy, you might want to see the developer in a suit, but if you're not and you go there in a suit, you might be like, okay, this developer does not suit our culture. We're here with woolen socks and, you know, just chilling. So
of
that's
course,
why
but
it's
for
important
this,
to know.
it was of course where I would recommend to go into the suit. So
Yeah, and I've got to second that. Is in I wear a suit when I go for interviews, even if it is a more relaxed place.
Because
And
you also feel more confident.
True.
Like you feel like more pretty, handsome. Sorry.
more professional.
More professional, yeah.
When I'm hiring people, even though I might turn up in jeans and a hoodie, I want them to make an effort on the interview stage. So I usually expect people, maybe not a full suit, but at least to have a jacket and a shirt. Okay, they might be wearing jeans and some shoes. But I like them to make an effort. I don't expect them to wear it on the day job, but for the interview, you like to think they've made an effort, they've had a shower, had a shave, done their hair. And some people turn out really scruffy and they're trying to say, well, I'm the smartest because I'm the most scruffy. And I'm like, no, that's from the movies. I don't think that's like it's real. You don't see developers hiding in the basement with no windows, no light. And you know, and developers need to be able to talk to people. They need to be able to present. Like I'm not talking to like 50 people, but to 3 or 4 people about something they're working on or an idea they have. And if they can't, and we come back to Andrew's point about they need to be on the phone. Some people are more confident because they can just say what they want. And but when you're in front of someone, you want to see what they're really like. And can they articulate? Do you think they can communicate with the team? Because as developers, we don't just work with other developers, right? We work with technical writers, designers, architects.
You work with the client directly as well, doing business analysis work and understanding what it is the requirements are. You work with a big group of people. Obviously you build up to that. The juniors, they tend to be a bit more protected from it, and it will start by kind of eking them in, but eventually, with lots of experience, you expect them to be pretty much on the forefront of any project that's going on, and be able to hold their own in a meeting as well, to be able to explain at the right time what it is that they feel you should be doing for that project. So yeah, very important to be able to communicate well, and also to be able to convert that kind of business speak into technical speak as well, and be able to transition between the two, because that's quite a talent as well.
Absolutely. So we've got a question on the live stream, and I'm really excited about this question because it's one of my personal favourites. It's really important. It's what my streams are usually about, so you probably guess what the question is. I'm going to read it directly, and it says, I don't want to pronounce the name wrong, but Chopin, I hope I pronounced that right. Thank you very much for the question. They ask, does open source contribution help in getting hired? So I want to say yes, and so I'm just going to jump in and give my quick opinion, and I'd love to hear everyone else's. So I say yes. When I get a CV, if it's got a GitHub link at the top that's got active open source contributions, no matter how small, or people say, oh, it's going to be something big and you feature, or for Angular or React, no. It can be simple documentation, it can be typo improvement, doesn't really matter. I want to see that, and I want to look at their work, because from that I can tell, do they care about improving a project? It doesn't matter if it's theirs or somebody else's, they want to make improvements. Even if it is just adding that missing line in documentation that is an assumption being made by a more senior developer that's just obvious, you need to write it in. So they want to help someone else, they want to contribute forward. Do they know the process of submitting a pull request to an open source project and that? The amount of times I've seen really good developers that can code. When I say, well, that looks really good, just raise a pull request and I'll have one more scan over it. How do I do that? It's like, it might not be an open source project, we still go through the same cycle. So I don't have to worry about that, and that they've gone through that. Also, I interviewed once a developer who showed me their pull requests on open source projects, and technically they were amazing. And as you dug further deeper, and someone asked the question, why did you do it this way? Have you thought about this? And there's just 2 different ways of doing it. Neither one was better. But they just effing blinded back to say, mind your own business, it's my PR. And I'm just thinking, well, you can't work like that. You need to kind of justify why you've done that. I'm not saying write a whole paragraph, but like one sentence. And it's good to have those discussions. So I believe open source is important for so many reasons. But I'm really interested to hear others. So if you got a CV, I guess, and it had GitHub on it, and the developer was really passionate about open source, would you rate that higher than anyone else's, or would it not affect it at all?
I think it really depends on the job spec.
Yeah, it does.
There are some clients that really want it, and then others, like in my industry, they don't care. Like in automotive with C++ and SQL and SPICE and automotive SPICE, they look so much more in everything else. So they wouldn't necessarily. But I think that's with all languages that you learn, or all technological things that you highlight in your CV, because you have to adjust it to what the client or the recruiter is looking for. you know.
Okay.
I would say, but
Mhm.
maybe you
I need to
see
hear
it
from all
differently.
of you on this because this
Yeah,
is really
yeah.
important to me.
Yeah, for me, I would have 1 year ago or 2 years ago, I would have said the same because our clients externally, they don't come for us to look for these things. They then maybe behind they might go,
Yeah.
but now internally, absolutely, always. Like I wouldn't say that okay, I prefer another CV if this one doesn't have it or it's not as active or something. But 100% that is a plus, and that is something. Even if it's not me going into your code and looking at it in GitHub or something, but it's gotta be the technical interviewers, our developers. That 100% they're gonna go through it and look into okay, what are you also like interested? What's your passions? Like how do you develop yourself exactly? Like how do you work with that? And yes, so 100%. Yes.
Yeah, no, I would say like it comes like at the end, like I think this is one of the main things, like what we were talking about too, like those are the things how you can stand out, those are the things you can kind of show. And I think sometimes I had a lot of feedback, like, because then of course we also go to the ones like we interview, we send them to our clients, and then we call them again after the interview, like how it went, because then also it's important for us to know, like, not all the interviewers, like if you go internal, like, never know who you meet. It might be CEO, it might be another developer, it might be a recruiter who you meet there. Sometimes, and actually many times, I feel I got bad like feedback from developers going and being like the conversation was really, we didn't go into like technical stuff or we didn't go into this stuff. And I think if you have something like that to show, it's easier to go straight away to the point, especially if you don't meet, okay, maybe if you meet someone really not technical, that's the company's way of doing it. But if you meet someone technical, that's the way you can get into business in a way, like you're not just talking about, oh, the weather is like this, and then we do like, we have like a nice coffee room there, and like someone came back to me like, I know they have a coffee room, I know they play golf in their free time, I don't know about that, because like that's kind of a way you can also be like, oh, I've done this by the way, and then you can get talking about that, and that's what I'm interested in, what do you do there, so you can kind of challenge the company also, I'd say.
Because it is a two-way street. I mean,
Yeah.
interviews are, I think we'll probably come on to that later on, but I think it's a two-way street. I feel I interview more the companies than they interview me, which I think is a bit awkward. Not awkward, a bit weird. When I come out going, I asked like 20 questions, they asked like one.
It should be a balance.
It should be a balance, absolutely. And I get concerned when they don't dig in more. I think, well, why don't they? Maybe because I just talk so much and I've already given them that
Maybe.
information. I don't know.
Get them all the answers.
Yeah. Well, what do you think, Andrew? Open source?
Open source is definitely worth putting on your CV. So, as I mentioned, interviewed a few people recently, mostly for junior roles, so they haven't got much to show in the way of experience. There might be a little bit saying this is my education, I did these things, or more recently, for one of the ones that surprised me a lot, he's had a background in, in betting. He's been working behind sort of betting tables and so forth for a number of years, about 10 years. And he decided that he wanted to change industry and get involved in something different. So he's been teaching his kids how to code and working with them on their school projects, and then started about a year ago to actually create his own GitHub account and was coding and putting things up on GitHub, made his own website on there and so forth. But he didn't actually put any of that on his CV. The CV was really empty. I mean, it was literally about 2/3 of one page. But nevertheless, I thought I can have a chat to him. As I said, I talk to everyone at the end of the day. And I asked him literally, so what is it you've been doing outside of sort of the betting jobs and permanent work you've got, and looking at your kids and trying to help your kids out with their coding and taking them off to hackathons and things. So he did mention a few of those in his kind of summary of where his interests lie. But he said, oh yeah, no, I've been doing some coding. I've been doing a few code school exercises, some of the free code camp stuff that you can do. And he had his own GitHub account. I said, oh, okay, can you pass me over the link for it? So I opened up the GitHub account. There's about 30 projects on there that he'd started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see from where he'd begun and what he was doing now. He had his own personal website on there using GitHub's hosting set up and all the rest of it. You thought, wow, this guy's he's doing all the right stuff, and you can see the journey he's going on. And that tells me that he's progressing, he's got the ambition there, he's got the passion there to do it. Whether or not that passion dies out is hard to tell. You never know with these things, because once you get stuck into a job, it can start to drain you a bit, becomes a bit monotonous depending on what people ask you to do. But he's got the right start. So yeah, he was someone I said, you know what, I'd love to hear more and see him for a second interview, which never happened. But nevertheless, I think he's one of the people that has been involved
okay,
since
awesome.
he started. So.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, definitely put it on there. And again, whenever I look people up, I get the CV, get the name, and I'll try and see, can I find out if they've got a GitHub account. If they haven't put it there, I'll still go and have a quick look.
I do
It's
have a
easy to
Google
look
and have a look,
search
but
someone's
I would
name.
prefer they just put it, like, it's not trying to get blood out of stone, right? It just makes my life easier, so, but I do have a Google.
It's not always clear because people put different names on it
Yes.
as well, don't they? And it doesn't help. So be yourself as well in these places. Help people find you. It's all about being found, so people can understand what you're about.
Absolutely. But another great question, which is kind of related, is about hackathons. Do hackathons help? And again, another favourite one of mine, because my wife says I work to go to conferences and hackathons, because that's what I love doing. So, to give you my opinion, I'll start off with mine, is yes, hackathons really help for so many reasons. Again, I think I'd rather hire someone from a hackathon, because if you've been working long hours, you're hungry, you're tired, and you're stressing, because you've got to give that presentation to another 100, 200 people, but you get along well with those people, then in that really difficult situation, then in an office place where it's not as stressful and you're not as tired and you're not as hungry, you're going to get along with them fine. So I think that removes that, can you work with people? So I think that's great, and you get to see people's true colours. Competitive hackathons, someone mentioned competitive hackathons. I like them less so because I find people will sell their own mother to win. I went to one where the first prize was £250,000, and literally, if someone went to the toilet for too long, they just got ousted from their team. They're not part of our team, they were gone for too long. And it's like, how does that work? So we prefer going to more, like, they still have prizes. The last one I went to was £10,000 first prize, but it was still collaborative. As in, people still swapped teams on the second day, and it was pretty relaxed. So I think, I don't go to hackathons that have prizes probably more than, like 10,000 is still good, but when you divide it by 4, it's 2.5. It's not like huge. So I prefer, collaborative hackathons, and you know, we won our fair share, and we could talk about it for ages, so maybe we won't. But I love hiring people from there, and I love seeing that people have gone to hackathons. I think that's important. And if they've gone to hackathons, you usually know someone who knows them, so you can kind of get, what does this person really, really like? Because everyone can have a facade and be nice for the first few weeks, and then, it turns out not so good. But how does that affect, I guess, someone coming through the recruitment side? I'm purposely doing me first and you last, so we can kind of sound it, if that's okay. But if you want to mix it up, then I'm with you. But yeah, what are your thoughts? If someone said, activities, regular hackathon goer, that's a word, but is that, do you think that's a positive, or you just really skim over it? Would you mention it to the client? Does it depend on the client?
I think externally you wouldn't necessarily mention it. You would probably ask a little bit the candidate, the developer, about their experience in, and you get to know them through this also a little bit better. In external, I mean, I can only speak for an external. Clients get the CV too, and then if they want to ask, then they can ask. If not, not. But I wouldn't necessarily highlight it, to be honest, because it's, of course, it's a challenge and everything, but it's not essential for what the client, because the client basically what they are looking at really is just what their keywords are. So C++, .NET, automotive spice, has he done something with radar or LiDAR, and you don't necessarily do that on hackathon, right? So yeah.
I could imagine that there comes the difference is because like externally you don't have that network in the company necessarily. If you're really lucky you might, but you don't really, so that's why it's probably more like, I can imagine internally then you might have people like, oh, you might know him or you might know her, and you get into more conversation. With us, I think like our CVs they have to have those certain words like this is what they've done, so that they are kind of like acknowledged, and then after that those kind of things come more important internally.
I mean, if you have really a company that is really geeky and you know it, or they are really like interested in hackathons and you know it, then of course you would highlight it because it's a plus point for their culture, for their company, etc. Other than that, probably not.
So if I was to ask a slightly different question, so if you would look at the ratio of clients that you work with, and you say how many of those clients are focused purely on the technical skills, and how many are focused more so on, say, the soft skills to support the technical skills, what would you say the ratio is? Would you say it's a very high percentage that they only care about the technical skills, or is there, maybe there's a trend changing, or what's the opinion on that?
I would have said 50-50.
Yeah.
So a year ago it was so much like it was like a trend thing, like more about like really understanding the softer skills and these things, but still it was like 50-50, I would say.
Maybe it is like also like when you're external recruitment, like companies kind of evaluate you a little bit what you were saying in the beginning, like kind of like how we evaluate their technical skills. So maybe coming from externals, especially they kind of like they get really disappointed with a good person without like those technical skills. So like for us, it's maybe I felt like as external, it was really important to have that those technical skills that they are there.
Yeah.
But I would say also it's more and more. I felt like a trend and like those like companies kind of emphasizing those skills. But then yeah, that was really something we could then help because we have talked to them maybe like 5-10 times before they went to an interview. So we can kind of tell like this is the person, this is how they are, and sometimes getting that personally out in the first meeting, that's the challenge that I felt with at least developers I talked to, some of them exceptional, some of them that was the challenge, and that was to like get so the client doesn't be like they are not like okay well this wasn't the personality we are looking for. So yeah, definitely trend in that sense they want to see.
So I think I understand how you filter out the personality side. I think that's really good, right? You want to make a good fit. How do you filter out on the technical side again? So you know that you get involved in tech, you come to events like this, which I think is great. It shows it shows you're standing out. We're talking about how developers stand out, and I think this shows how recruiters stand out because you're talking at events, you're going the extra mile, you're coming doing live streams and videos and so forth. But I think that's really important. That helps your your personal brand. It shows that, like you mentioned, you're passionate about this sort of thing. On the technical side, how can you tell if a developer's basically lying? Because they do. How do you have any tips or tricks or if not, no, it's fine. I mean, and there's not the right or wrong answer. I'm just curious how you filter out in addition to the personality. So say we're on the phone and if you meet up, or say you meet up and you're like this person's great. How do you know I'm not I know that I can talk the talk, I'm not walk the walk. Is it just with years of experience? Do you can kind of suss if someone's kind of trying to use bingo buzzwords?
Yeah.
Or is it trying to get into online tests and things? Is there a lot of that? Because I know in the past there was a lot of people that they were very focused on they're going to do this online test.
Not a big fan.
No, I don't do them. If someone said do online tests, I'm not interested. Because the online test is not a practical thing. It's more like at university. Sort this data and the database will do that for me. Why would I do that? I'm not a C++ engineer who's working at the low level stuff. I'm a web dev. So
I have to be honest, I mean, I don't understand all the technical stuff. That's why we have the technical interviews. Like internally now, especially, of course, I'm like passionate about this and I'm interested in cloud, what's happening, but I don't understand the code. Like I don't. Yes, I have this semi feeling of okay, kind of. Because I've done so many interviews for these specific roles that, of course, if you're talking kind of outside of everything, I can like catch that. But I'm not gonna be there like, yes, I understand completely everything what you say. That's why we have the technical interviews and our senior people going to really dig deeper to the technical. Of course, they had briefed me on things that these are the things that they should answer to these certain things, or these are the features or services or things like that. But I'm not gonna sit here and say yes, I completely understand what C++ these features. No, that's not my job.
of course.
So
I think that the client also gives you some kind of insights on what they are technically looking for the people. So if, for example, okay, he does C++ development, and then the client says, yeah, but he really had to have worked with radar, for example. Then you dig in a little bit deeper and you say, hey, have you worked with radar? And then he says, yes, of course. And then you say, okay, have you worked with LIDAR? And he says, no. And then you he says yes, and I don't know, after a while you know how radar and LIDAR fits together, you know how C++ and radar fits together, you know if someone is programming HMI, how they then explain it, because you also probe them, I guess, a little bit. You would say, okay, so I don't know, I'm really new to this, I've never heard of it. Can you actually explain me how you set up the HMI dashboard of a car? And then if they say, they start stumbling, okay, he's, So, but you only do that with people where you have a minimum doubt. I would say with 70% they are actually quite honest and they say, listen, I've actually never done this, or whatever. With the one that you have a doubt, you actually go and probe them in different things.
With open questions as well, because you
Yeah.
know the people that you hired
Exactly.
that got the job and they answered by this, so of course you understand on that
Yeah.
level.
So that's where experience comes in, I guess, and
Yeah.
in that area. And I guess if you switched areas, then you'd have maybe kind of there'd be overlap, of course.
Yeah, but you would need some time to get into the market again.
Great point, by the way, about this. That's why niche recruiters, like really niche, who know their markets, who know their technology, not just I'm an IT recruiter, but
Right.
is it SAP, is it C++, is it, what is it? Because then you're really all the time working with these kind of roles.
Yeah.
So that's how you then start to know about it. And I'm sorry, just
No,
one more
please.
thing, like there, I think if you cannot simply, just in general, like if you cannot simply explain to someone that is not as expert as you,
Yeah.
then you don't really either know.
What you're doing.
Yes.
You have no clue.
So that is also kind of a good guideline.
Yeah.
No, I would definitely say, and then externally, like you might have in your company, like in recruitment company, so much knowledge within the company, and they have really good trainings, and like other recruiters tell you like this is the market, so that helps new ones. But hands up, I would say that was one of the main challenges in the beginning, starting recruitment, and definitely something that like you kind of learn by mistake also. So like I can imagine that there are clients out there who have worked for recruitment companies are like, I have no idea what they are doing. Like how do they test these people? Like or like do they know technical skills? And I have to be honest, there are gonna be new ones. Like I was a new one.
Yeah, we all were.
Oh, we all were, yeah.
I had no idea. So like, yeah, it might be easy for like an agency person, especially because we don't have it so close as internally. You might have like hiring like manager telling you like this is what you could ask. Like companies are not, most like they are not telling us so detailed. We're not gonna have such a detailed conversation about like the skills because they have the internal recruiters, they have their things, million things going on at the same time. So we get into things, but technical
Yeah.
sometimes.
And they might work with 10 other recruiters, so they're not
Yeah.
gonna go and tell all the insights on every single thing for 10 recruiters. No, I wouldn't bother doing that as an internal. Like,
That's a good point. So I'm looking at Andrew as well. So how many recruiters do you usually work with to hire a role? I mean, just and I'm gonna flip the question around and see if someone says I'm working with 20, would you ignore it or come back?
Yeah, I mean, typically it's between probably 1 and 3, I'd say, is probably the standard range. It depends on what you're looking for and if you happen to have had some good experiences. So in a lot of cases, I'll probably just start with 1, but then extend it out. But
That's
yeah,
time
I'd say there's
resource, okay.
3 probably would be the average you end up with. But I've also worked on roles where there's been the internal recruitment team, but they've been struggling to find people, so they go to an external people. But what they often end up doing is they'll just invite 10 different recruiters in, and they'll literally be in the boardroom, sat around the table, going, right, so what is it we're hiring for? And you'll have all of them in the room just firing questions, just all trying to sort of fill this role, and that gets a little bit chaotic. It's also interesting to see them all interact, because they don't want to talk to one another at all. And when they're in that room, all they want to do is talk to you, ask you questions, but they won't talk to one another. It's quite a strange experience when you go down that side of doing the recruitment as well. But yeah.
because that's a competition, and they're all
Absolutely.
thinking about these like 5 shortlisted maybe candidates, thinking who is gonna get that candidate first.
Yeah.
So it's a competition.
But also when you do end up with that situation as well, you find multiple recruiters will send the same people through. You're then going to decide, well, who got that one in first? Do I only deal with the person that got it in first? Or actually, am I going to deal with this one because I've seen the same one, but I prefer talking to this person?
Yeah.
So you don't have these kind of conundrums as well when you have lots of them. But likewise, you might have already interviewed people, and I think it was mentioned a minute ago, where you end up seeing that same person come through, even though you've already spoken to them, they just keep on coming back. But it's not the recruiter's fault, but then you start to get a bit agitated as well, because certainly when you end up actually taking a phone call, because you don't connect that they were the same person, because you've seen so many, yeah, that becomes a little bit nasty when you see the same people come through the door all the time. But even when you change roles, so came to the current place, and the last one I was at, interviewed a chap in November, and he was there to do a 6-month job, and I started here December time, so I just finished the other one, started the new one in December, and about 3 weeks later, his CV came on the doorstep for a role here, I thought, hang on, you're supposed to be at that place for 6 months. Why have I suddenly seen his CV appear? Has he been kicked out? Or it's just like, yeah, I'm going
Which
to
is a
talk
bit,
to someone that I know I've just placed somewhere else.
and it's a bit worrying when you see, especially with contractors, you see them change like they've never had a contract renewed. So they do 3 months, say 3 months, 6 months, but every place is different. They never once had a renewal. I appreciate not every place is going to renew someone because the project might be finished, etc. and so on. But when they've never had one renewal, for me that's alarm bells. Like, so that might be a one-off thing. They might not have got on with the person there or something like that, or there's some miscommunication. That's fine. But if all his history before that, I would be I guess be concerned. But I'm sure it wasn't because you hired him. So I'm
No,
sure it wasn't,
he interviewed great, and the CV that was sent through, I remember what it looked like. It was pretty good. I mean, typically when you're looking at sort of past work experience, I'd expect as a contractor that you've got 2 or 3 3-month roles, then you might have a longest sort of 12-month role. It'd be a bit of a mix, but if you do literally see that it's only kind of 2 3-month roles all the way going on for the last few years, that does bring up alarm bells. You think, okay, why have you only been doing a couple of months here and there? You might have been really unfortunate that every role you've gone to, they literally just wanted to get one thing done, and you've done it quickly and effectively, and you've been able to move on, and maybe that's actually a good story to say. But it's not generally clear. If you're looking at it and you're going, it's 2 3 months every time for the last couple of years, alarm bells go off, and you think, I'd rather get someone that's a bit more stable, willing to stick around for 12 months, because that generally means they've been doing a decent job there. So.
And more complex projects.
Yeah, and they've managed to get into some depth as well, because in a couple of months you can't get into any depth really, you're only touching the surface generally.
There's some more questions coming up in the chat, but I'm also conscious, or we haven't moved very far in that list. We might have to do a part 2 or something.
Yeah, we're covered little.
Okay, good. Okay, I don't feel so bad because I'm also watching the clock and I know people are hungry. So if anyone starts biting on someone else's arm, then you know it's time to kind of.
What do you want to look towards next then?
So I know I've been speaking a lot. What kind of takes your interest? What do you think? I know we've got some CVs to look through as well, so we can kind of dissect those, some good ones and some bad ones. We've also had a standout. We have kind of mentioned that with GitHub open source, and personal branding as well. What job spec and flow? I think that's quite interesting as well. I'd like to hear. Also to give you a question. What's the process like? Technical interviews, takeaway tests, and then we kind of mentioned pair programming with the team. I mean, we can cover that as well. What are your friends talking about? What are you passionate about? Or what do you hate more or love more? What do you feel? Come on, Andrew.
I can cover the one you just spoke about just now around process and flow a little bit from my point of view on what I.
Yeah, let's do it. I think it'd be good to answer the question.
Yeah. I mean, there's 2 different styles of role you look for. So the contract role and the perm role, generally. Okay. Now within that you've got the different levels of junior, midweight, senior, lead, manager, whatever it is. But if I just look at it purely from a contractor versus permanent position and what the flow is, for a contractor, it's generally one quick phone interview and then potentially bring them in. The problem with contractors is they move very quickly if they're any good, so you can't hang around and wait once you find a good one. You've got to basically be offering them the job.
Yeah.
That's what they tend to expect. So often, if I think they're any good, I'll try and just do it over the phone and get it there and then done and dealt with. But for a permanent person, because the chances are they're going to be there for a much longer time, they could influence and end up getting promoted into other roles and so forth, which the contractor is not so likely to end up having that happen to them. Then I would be looking more to go down the kind of, I'd like to see a little bit of a test. If they've got some example code and we can just sit down and they can just take you through how it was they did that code. But I'm more interested in their thought process. That for me is a big deal when it comes to sort of a second interview or more of a technical interview. Is what is the process they go through? Do they go straight into trying to just do the solution and write the code, or do they try to understand it? Do they build up things like acceptance criteria? Do they then look to the tests and write some tests out to say this is how I'm going to evidence that it's complete? Are they going to go off and have conversations with people? What is the whole process? Because if someone just says, "Oh, I expect to be given the work, I'll write the code and then throw it to someone else, and it's their problem," I'm generally not going to be interested in going much further with that kind of conversation. But yeah, typically I'd say contractor is probably going to be a one-off interview. The risk being that after a week you decide they're no good, you get rid of them, but that's the contractor world, unfortunately. If they're no good, you just get rid of them and find another one. Generally, once someone's in, it's very difficult to get rid of them because a manager somewhere says, "Oh no, we don't want to go through that again, we're going to keep them." But my opinion is if they're no good, I'm quite happy to just get rid of them.
That's the Gary Vee opinion as well, actually. He says you don't know someone until you've hired them, so hire them, and if they're the wrong person, you get rid of them.
And that goes for permanent people to a degree as well, because I mean that's why they say you've got a 3-month probation period, although
And the
legally
first
you've got
week or
about 2
two,
years really
like-
before you can actually oblige
But in
to
the
certain
first
things.
week or two, you really know if the person's gonna
Absolutely,
apply
yeah.
or
Within a
not.
couple of weeks, you know whether you're going to invest some time in them. So yeah, I'm generally quite a risk taker when it comes to hiring, but I want to get it done fairly quick. I'd rather get the person in, see what they can really do, and if they're no good, move on to the next one, unfortunately. Because you just don't know, as you say. You can sit there and you can go through 30 different interviews,
Yeah.
try and get all different angles, and even when they start the job, it's no good. You might as well, if you feel they've got the right kind of attitude, they've got, say, things like ambition, passion, technically they've got the logical mindset about them, then you say, okay, you tick the main boxes for me, let's get you in, get you onto something and just see how you get on.
I have to say, I would love that if companies all work like that. Like they want it kind of like,
Yeah.
I really believe in that. And like coming from agency background, like we work with different kind of clients, and some people have such a like, I understand there are many things in business you have to take like this into consideration, especially with permanent, which I was focusing on that recruitment, and some, if it gets too heavy, it's, yeah, you lose developers, good developers. So yeah, definitely like seeing how they are in real life, like even though then it is harsh that you've been working somewhere for 2 weeks and then it's like, thank you, next. But that's when you see it, because like no matter what like interview techniques we have, like how is the person, how is the personality, how they present themselves, but it's still kind of easy to keep that certain kind of act going on in the like telephone and like conversations which last maybe an hour, maximum hour and a half, compared to like when you're working, or like you say, maybe you can have like a hackathon or something, and there it's proper tested. But if you don't have that, you don't know how they are when they are like hungry. It's 4 p.m. and you have a new project coming on your table. Are they the ones who are like, thanks and out the door, or
Yeah.
really committed?
Yeah, exactly. Committed. I think that's really, really important. Are they committed to help with the team, or are they just going to say, okay, I've done my bit, it's your problem now, I'm out.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
That's it.
That's true.
It's very different though from contract to perm, I think. Like as you mentioned already,
Yeah, there
like
is a big
it's
difference.
big difference.
And also
Also
within different
because with-
industries, because if you look
Yeah.
at the public sector and the private sector, and even within the private sector, you look at, well, the public sector, sorry, you look at kind of, I'd say the Gov UK, like the Home Office places, and then you look at kind of the Ministry of Defence approach to things. It's all very different. And you've also then got to go through various clearances. So if you go into the Ministry of
Yeah.
Defence, you're going to have to get Home Office clearances done. Chances are, if you've had to go through some of that, they're going to want to not have to get rid of that person and find someone else, because there's a cost involved, there's time involved in doing some of those things. So even within the different industries, there's slightly
Yeah.
different things you have to consider.
Sorry, you were going to add. Say
No,
something.
I lost.
Ah, okay, go.
No,
Sorry.
I was saying in permanent recruitment, it's also the people then maybe also move for the job. That's another factor. And in contract, of course, they could also move, but it's more short term, or they can work from home, or they can do live streams or whatever. But when you're in a permanent role, many clients actually expect them to move as well, because they have to be on site, they have to be long term there. So of course, it's also for a developer a kind of a challenge to then say, yes, I agree to this. And then maybe the client says, I love that client, but he had the request to be 1 week in Italy and 3 weeks in Germany. And of course you have then family, and you think about it, and you tell this to a developer and say, yeah, so client wants you to be 1 week in Italy and 3 weeks in Germany, and 1 week in Italy and 3 weeks in Germany. And then the developer says like, no, I'm not doing this. Like, of course, how should I handle this? But then it's of course how you look at it and how you feel about it. But you have to make sure that the developer feels confident with that as well.
So I find that interesting, because I'd almost say it's the other way around from my experience, that when I've been looking for roles, it's the contractor they expect to move around. They expect their permanent staff to be quite comfortable and happy and not have to move around and relocate themselves. I mean, I've had jobs that have sent, like I said, off to Italy, Germany. I spent about 3 months, most of my time up in Newcastle not that long ago, not the nicest places. Well, Newcastle's alright, you find some good places, but when you're walking around the streets at night, you think, I don't want to necessarily be here.
Yeah.
But as a contractor, I sort of expect that. That's kind of what I feel you sign up to as a contractor. Whereas a permanent member of staff, I expect to more be able to choose where I want to go and say, you know what, I'd like to join that event and be at that one. There's this one, whereas a contractor, you're more told you're going there. That's been my opinion.
See, I disagree.
You disagree? Okay.
This is like going to turn into developer
Yeah.
versus developer because I disagree. So I prefer contracting for a whole raft of reasons, but one of the big reasons is I can choose who I work with, when I work, and where I go to work. So, you know, when I speak to someone, yes, we get out the technical levels and make sure we're all happy, but I always make clear from the beginning that I don't want to come to London every day. You know, 2 days to London a week is my maximum. I want the rest from home or not work at all like I am at the moment. I'm doing 3 days a week. I am doing open source work on 2 days, so not that I won't do anything. Andrew's laughing. I am doing open source work. Check my GitHub out. It's busy. And I've got some videos on my YouTube, so I've been busy doing stuff. Not just watching Netflix. So I think that's the benefit of being a contractor is you get to choose. And if a client says, if you're with a client for 6 months and they say, right now, I want you to go up to Scotland for a month, or it's like, well, if that doesn't work, or wherever, Italy or Germany, I think Germany would go. Because Berlin is awesome. Italy, gluten intolerant, allergic to gluten, they have pasta and everything.
Yeah, you can have gluten-free pasta.
It's true, now you can. When I went last time, you didn't. So now you can, it's true. I'm just going in 2 weeks. So, yeah, I would just say, well, I'm really sorry, I'm not the right person for the job.
Yeah.
Can I do a handover and pass it on to someone else? And I might stay and go off for 1 week or something. But, yeah, I don't know, I like the flexibility of being a contractor to choose.
I think when you're doing the work, you get to choose a lot of what you want to do, how you're going to go about doing it. So if you're going off to places, you say, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to stay there. Whereas as a permanent sub, you normally got a budget you're working within.
Yeah.
So there are other differences within that. But yeah, you can, if you want to be, I'd say slightly more aggressive, like Eddie's perhaps being there, and say, no, I'm not doing that, I'm doing this.
Well, it's not aggressive, I think it's
You
assertive.
can say that. And, yeah.
I'm old now, I can be assertive and choose what I want. I'm set in my ways. And I've done the coming to London, to Canary Wharf, or to the Ministry of Justice every day for like, you know, years on end, as a contractor still. Getting, you know, the higher kind of money sort of thing, you know, chasing that. I think now it's just kind of, you know, swings and roundabouts. When you're maybe saving for things, saving for a deposit for a house, you go, you know what, I want to go to Canary Wharf every day, I want to sell my soul for 12, 14 hours a day and make bigger money. And then I think now when you get old like me, you kind of think, you know what, I don't need to kill myself so much, let's go something back to the community, let's do some charity work and so
I think
on.
it's now getting to that point of trying to share those experiences a bit more, isn't it? I think you've gone through different pains, different angles, all sorts of different things. Now it's trying to give things back. I think that's the point of trying to have these conversations.
To give things forward. So there is one other subject which overlaps with what we've been discussing is like culture. So we mentioned kind of, you know, yeah, I say I want to work part-time, for example, or I want to travel, or do want to travel to some nice places. So Berlin. So I went to Berlin last year and I loved it. So clean. Trains run on time. Literally was down there like 10 seconds late and was like, oh, this is really late. I'm like, this is late, this is like early. The train in the UK is 20 minutes late, it's on time. So yeah, I loved it there. Yeah, so what is culture to when people speak to you? How do you understand the company's culture and what do you say? I think maybe like 10, 15 years ago, it was like, we've got a pool table and free beer, that's culture. It's like, oh, that's not culture. And so, yeah, what do you think is important to culture, I guess, and what do people look for, generally speaking? I guess it might be demographics. If they're younger, they want that Friday night beers.
Yeah.
And if they're older and got a family, they want remote working maybe, or flexible time to be with kids. So it'd be really interesting to hear, and also what you think is.
I think in external, it's, I mean, I'll speak again about external maybe. The same as we do screen our candidates, so developers or whatever, consultants, we do the same, of course, also for the company that we will hire for. Because it's really important. So what we establish, of course, either we meet them, unfortunately, because I had most of my jobs in Germany, I couldn't necessarily do that, but I would definitely ask like average age, interest groups, do you have any clubs, do you organize any events? And then if they say we have hiking events, I know what kind of people more or less, of course I don't know them inside out, but more or less you can say, or if they say we every month we organize a sports day, or every month we organize a grill party or whatever. So you kind of get to know get to know the company culture just by asking some kind of questions, and you also ask directly what in your opinion is your company culture to the HR lady, because or to the managing director, and you say, listen, what's for you the most important thing? And so of course you need to have that bond to your own client or the company itself as well, if you can't be there like an internal one. I guess.
No, yeah, from my side, I think more and more is flexible working hours, remote working. Unfortunately, still a year ago, there was a lot of companies that don't offer this, and then you just gotta deal with it. This candidate is not interested to go forward because you guys don't offer remote working, for example. So I think those are, and now internally, like definitely those two are the most kind of cultural things, and more and more about the community, what you do, diversity,
Yeah.
Agile, being transparent,
Yeah.
those kind of things. Yeah, maybe less about the Friday beers. I mean, it's a nice little thing, but it's not like, yeah, you know, the one thing that.
I think if the company has a good culture and people get along, they'll just go for beers themselves,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's not something you have to enforce, and people just want to do it.
Yeah.
We worked at a place where there was one person who didn't want to go somewhere where they served beer, and so we went to a restaurant where they also served alcohol, but it wasn't just beers. And it's great for me because I love to eat, not drink. So for me, I was like, brilliant, you all drink, I'll order some food. Because usually I won't make it home after like half a beer, but we dance on the table and under the table. But yeah, so I think it's interesting, really interesting to hear that. You know, I think it's.
Can I ask a little bit more on the question? Though? So
Sure.
you said, so there's obviously people probably watching, looking for work. How much do you reckon a client, when you've been placing candidates at clients, how much do you think the client is willing to personalise the cultural aspects to the different candidates that are coming through? Do you think the client's quite open to that? When they're writing out the job specs, they're probably not mentioning the things that they're willing to do. How do people negotiate some of those cultural things that they might want from a job? How much do you think? What's the sort of feeling there, I guess?
It's a really good question.
I kind of have a feeling like what I speak to people, developers especially, like culture is a big thing. I think developers know exactly what they want, but companies, I feel, I don't know, afraid is maybe a wrong word for it, but I'm kind of afraid to tell what they are looking for. And I feel that maybe going to that direction, or I kind of, in a way, wish it was going that direction, that people, like companies don't tell so directly, like this is what we offer, like we are like, for example, we are a super relaxed company, we drink a lot here, we go for drinks, like you say, because like, for example, I would say personally, like that would be like, okay, well maybe not my kind of company then, like they don't want to, especially like niche markets where it's hard to get people. I feel companies are going to direction, they're like, they want to kind of hide it because they want to personalize it, or like they at least want to give that that kind of impression that they do. I'm not sure like in Excel like how much is possible, because you have certain kind of people like it kind of, they create atmosphere, they create a culture there. But I would say companies are kind of hiding, they're not bringing it up so much so that they would, and I hope they would do it even more. They're kind of, because developers know exactly what they want, and this is not a company, like if I go to an interview, I've been told this, like if I go to an interview and there's going to be someone in a suit there, I'm going to just turn away because like it's not my face. And for me as a recruiter, I was a bit like, please don't do that because I'm pretty sure this client is going to be in a suit. But like they have this very strict, some of them, like this is what I want, like if it's not going to be like this, like it's going to be like black and white building with like no plants, no like beer there, I'm walking away. So I think companies are getting more and more careful, kind of, that they are like, we're willing to personalize and like, oh, and then adapt, and then they can sell like, yeah, we do that, and I hope they do it even more.
I think it's good to personalise, and also I think also revisit with those people. So if you hire with a contractor, it's a bit different. If you're a permanent, say you can't do it for 3-5 years, what they wanted in the first year is probably going to be very different in the 5th year. If they're over, maybe if they're not over an age, if they got over that kind of part of their life where it's going to be more family, more kind of that sort of like middle age, is that the right word? I don't know, but like okay, between 25 and 30, not much will make a change, but then between 30 and 35, more will change, is my point. And what they wanted in the beginning might be different, so you might have to repersonalise on a yearly basis to see what people want.
And it's not just an age thing, because if you always, every Friday you go out with the same lot for 5 years, you might have like something else you want to do also. Like then
Yeah.
that's how you can also personalize. Like okay, we've been doing the Friday beers now for 5 years. Like we could try sports, we could go bowling. Like we could try something else.
You have 5 years in recruitment, do you?
Sorry?
You have 5 years in recruitment, do you?
Yeah.
Do you have something else?
On that note, though, I went to, so I got, as I mentioned before, I got a lot of events, hackathons, etc. The Google group, Google Cloud group, have started to do something a bit different, and they did something really special last week. It was actually really interesting. So when I heard it, I was like, it's not going to work with geeks and stuff. But it was a workshop for 2 hours, and then karaoke and Latino dancing.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's not going to work. It worked out really, really well. Because maybe half the people kind of got up to get involved, and half just pretended to carry on working and look over. But then when they saw everyone was having so much fun, that they went and joined in, and it's actually, I swear, 90% of people were up dancing and singing, and it was just really authentic, and really, everyone was just themselves, there was no judgment, and it was great. It was really, really good. So again, doing something slightly different. Yes, there was wine and beer there, and there was some lovely food. I mean, the food was unbelievable. I mean, it came out like a Michelin-star restaurant, something like slate plates with like stuffed grill. I don't know. It was just brilliant.
Makes me hungry.
Yes. But on that note, it's just gone 8 o'clock. I know we haven't covered everything. We might have to do a part 2 because I'm happy to cover more. But I know
Finish with a couple of tips, maybe.
Yes, with some actionable points.
People.
Yeah, some of them I think we covered on the kind of GitHub and just being active in the community, the hackathons, putting the GitHub and stuff on your CV.
Don't be afraid to be also a little bit different, but not too different. And still keep your CV clean. Like, I don't know how many CVs I get, and I just think, have you actually looked at it once? Like, you have to, so if you're a developer, you code, you have your rules, you have the brackets that open, you have the body, you have the slash, you have the bracket that closes. Same thing goes with the CV, please guys or girls. Like, you have the date, and you can't have the date with 15.17 something, and then the next one is 14/12. And I'm like, how can this be? How can you be so clean in coding but not keeping your CV clean?
It needs to be consistent, right?
Consistent and clean, and of course, what you said, innovative or whatever, put some technical things in as well, but clean first of all. Like, we adjust so many CVs. You have no idea how many CV, and then a CV comes in and we just look at each other and we say like,
Yeah, and you don't have to put everything. That's what it's also about the being clean. Like, don't put everything that you've done 25 years ago. Like, really, like maybe it's relevant to something, but not to everything. Like 5 years, what did you do? What was your role in the project?
Yeah.
Not just what we did in the project. What was your role, the action, the result? Maybe you did certifications, things like this that really kind of also guides where do you want to go next. Yeah. Keep it simple.
Definitely, yeah, that you emphasize those things you want to do also in it. You might not have experience, but if you've done some old projects, you have some like GitHub or something, then that would be great. Because like if you emphasize the things you're really strong at, you don't want to do. Like I've done Java for the last 10 years, I don't want to do it anymore, but it's like the biggest thing in your CV. It's really hard today to a client to be like, this is a really great, doesn't want to do Java by the way, but yeah. And if you say you're creative, for example, kind of show it in your CV. Not too creative, but like if you're like, oh, I'm really interested in like things looking good, and that's what I develop websites and like how they look, how they saw some kind of a app or something, and your CV is black and white, really the most boring font you can find. It's a little bit of a mismatch. Like you wanna like kind of show it there, obviously not too much, but keep it clear. But okay, I'm creative. Yeah.
True. Shall I go next? Shall I go next? Well, let's just give a shout out. Say hi, everyone say hi to Dave Harper.
Oh, Dave's
who's just
watching.
joined us.
Hello,
He's a
Dave.
friend of Andrew's and mine who's worked with us for a while. And David says, get someone to peer review your CV. We peer review each other's code, we review it all the time, but we should do our CVs as well. So therefore, hopefully when it gets to the recruiters.
Well, we do that, don't we, for each other? When
We
we're looking
do,
for
yeah.
work, we've often, I mean, I think Dave's been involved in that as well, where we say, oh, I've just updated my CV, could you just give me any pointers. Have I written something that doesn't make sense to you if you were looking at this and those kinds of things? Yeah, everyone, if you're in the tech industry, you know someone.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe salesperson looks at it differently than recruiter
Yes.
to senior developer to CTO.
Yeah, and to getting different perspectives again really
Yeah.
really helps. My advice is pretty obvious. It's written on my hoodie. Everyone knows it. Open source. If you've got activity on your GitHub, great. If you haven't, just do it. And it could be your learning. Even if you're learning like Angular or whatever you're learning, just put it on there on GitHub. Because when I interview someone, I want to look back 2 months and see have they improved. Just doesn't matter where they are now, but are they better than they were 2 months ago? If not, then I'm worried why they haven't learned. So even if things are incomplete, they should share it on their GitHub and just have their journey. And at least want to see 12 months. I don't want to see 1 month really busy. Because that's when they start looking for a job and they're trying to like be active. It's like, well, I want the history because in a month you can't really tell very much. So yeah, that's my advice. Open source. Your CV will get to the top of the pile if it's got a GitHub link on it and activity. The amount of people though that share a GitHub link, I'm like, oh great, it's not a CV of GitHub link. And there's nothing. I'm like, that was pointless. Like,
Have you just created it yesterday?
yeah, exactly. It's like, I have a GitHub account. Yes, but that's like saying you have an extra page in your CV but it's blank.
Yeah.
Like, there's no point, so
Maybe they just tested would you actually go to check that.
maybe. Go on, Andrew. Actionable.
Seeing as you've taken the stuff to do with GitHub and the journey side of things, I'll say the one thing that, if you, and this is perhaps more towards the more senior developers, I still see a lot of people that just put the first pages, all their education, all the certificates they've ever had. You think, okay, it's great to know you've done that stuff, but that doesn't tell me a great deal about what you're going to be like. Show me more your achievements. What are the things you've actually achieved during your career? And what is it you want to actually be doing? So where is the journey? Where have you come from? Where is it you want to go? They're the more interesting things about your CV. I'm not just interested in, I've got a list of skills, I've done all this education, because you might be the smartest person in the world, but if you can't show how you apply yourself, then that's not going to be much use. So yeah, I look to see how people apply themselves when I'm reading a CV. So think about it from the point of view of me reading it and going, if you were taking that CV in, would you hire that person? Would you hire yourself?
That's a good question, actually.
Definitely. And in the beginning, like the main things in the beginning, like sometimes you open a CV and the first thing is like, my hobby is a gym, but it's not relevant to your CV actually, like nothing to do with the job you want to do, like I'm on a sporty community or something like that, it's just gym. And then my family is, and like just delete those stuff or put them at the bottom because then they are just added information, like the main things, what you've done.
Yeah, I think it's nice to see a little bit about what the people's external interests are and where it was. That will tell you a bit about how they fit into your culture. So, but definitely don't put it at the top. I mean, the top of your CV. I mean, generally it's the first couple of paragraphs of what people are going to read. And if in the first couple of paragraphs you haven't got it right, they're not going to read the rest of it anyway.
So highest priority at the top, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely work your way down to kind of the, not the lowest priority, right? But you want to keep people engaged, like to go further down. I need food as well, so I've got Lucozade with me. I haven't even opened it yet. But yes, high priority at the top. I'm really upset we didn't cover those CVs. I think we're all flaking. It's been quite a long time. We might have to save those for part 2. I really am so grateful for you all joining and for bringing those CVs. I know we didn't look at it. I know we had technical issues at the beginning and we started like an hour late. But I am conscious of it's kind of 8:15, way past my bedtime. So
there's a lot you can talk about.
Yes.
there is.
So much more.
There is a lot. And I think it's really good. I think we've kind of covered quite broadly as well as gone into a few subjects quite deeply as well. So we've got the kind of best of both worlds. And next time I think it'll be. Siri, no, I'm fine, thank you. And I think next time it'll be really good to continue that and look at the example CVs that you brought and see which ones are good and which ones are bad. And maybe we need to think about getting takeout as well for next time. I don't know. We can think of something, right? Having something a bit more. If people don't mind watching us eat. Me dropping my food everywhere. I don't know. Okay, we need to think about that. That's needs
The
some.
CVs and the job descriptions.
Job description is really important because so many are so bad, and I think this is where we kind of get a bit of a diversity problem that we mentioned right at the beginning, and I won't go into that now, but again, if the job description is written really badly, I think it's going to put off probably the people that you want to hire, you're going to get people that you actually don't. So
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, I think a job description is very specific. I mean, whenever I look for stuff, if it's got 30 odd skills that someone's looking for, you think you've got problems going on. So you want to look at a job spec that's just got 2 or 3 bullets to it and say these are the 3 things they're after, and a little bit about some of what they're working on. I mean, I know from a recruitment perspective you're probably concerned because if I say too much it might identify who the client is, but it's how do you word things on a job spec that say this is what the client is actually doing, what the industries they're involved in, and where they're trying to go, and so you know, oh yeah, that's something I know I can help them get there. Otherwise, you end up having to have those conversations on the phone. And as a candidate, you end up going to lots of interviews, and yeah.
Okay, I think we call it a day. I just want to say thank you so much again. This is where I should have given you your gifts now. Like, but,
Guys, we got chocolate!
so you don't need dinner, right? You've got the dinner sorted.
You keep going for a while. I'll just snack on that for a minute.
Yeah. I'm going to hit
Thank you so
stop
much for
us.
having us.
No, thank you all
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for coming in.